Captain Jessica Hayes stared at the smoking remains of the Lucky Strike's coffee maker with the kind of devastation usually reserved for major system failures. The ancient mining vessel's bridge, a cluttered space that looked more like a comfortable living room than a command center, filled with the acrid smell of burnt coffee grounds. "Taylor," she called out to her engineer without taking her eyes off the mechanical corpse. "Please tell me this is fixable." Lieutenant Amy Taylor, her boots sticking out from under a nearby console where she'd been upgrading the navigation systems, rolled out just enough to peek at the coffee maker. Her face said everything before she even opened her mouth. "Not without parts we don't have, Cap. That circuit board is completely fried." Jessica slumped into her captain's chair, which was really just an old office chair with better lumbar support. "Of all the days for this to happen, we're 3 weeks from the nearest supply stop. I've got some instant coffee in my quarters," offered Communications Officer Mike Rodriguez from his station, which was decorated with tiny plastic dinosaurs. "It's pretty terrible, but it's technically coffee." "That's what we've been reduced to," Jessica sighed dramatically. "Instant coffee. The mining guild would revoke our licenses if they knew." That's when every screen on the bridge lit up with the same urgent message: "Unknown vessels approaching." The crew snapped to attention, their comfortable casualness replaced with practiced efficiency. 3 ships, reported Taylor, sliding back under her console. "No match to known configurations in our database." "Getting some weird energy readings," added Rodriguez, his hands flying over his controls. "They're big. Like, really big." Before Jessica could respond, space itself seemed to tear open before them. Where there had been empty void moments before, a massive vessel materialized. It was gold and silver, covered in ornate spires and decorative flourishes that served no apparent purpose. It looked like someone had taken a cathedral, a palace, and a battleship, thrown them in a blender, and somehow made it fly. "Are they?" Jessica squinted at the view screen. "Are those actual flying buttresses on a spaceship?" The massive vessel's appearance was followed by what could only be described as a light show. Holographic displays hundreds of kilometers wide filled space around them, showing scenes of conquest and glory. Alien armies marched across star systems, worlds bowed before thrones, and text in a dozen languages scrolled past declaring the might and majesty of something called the Eternal Empire. Rodriguez's console crackled to life with a transmission. "Attention, primitive vessels," boomed a voice that sounded like it had practiced this speech in the shower. "You have entered the domain of the Eternal Empire, rulers of 10,000 species, masters of 50,000 years of civilization. Prepare to be boarded and processed for integration into the greater glory of." The speech cut off as Jessica choked on her mouthful of instant coffee, coughing and laughing simultaneously. "Oh my God," she wheezed, "they're cosplaying space Romans. Look at those outfits." The holographic display had zoomed in on what appeared to be the bridge of the massive vessel. Aliens in elaborate uniforms stood in dramatic poses, their shoulders adorned with what looked suspiciously like golden football pads. One of them wore a cape that seemed to billow in non-existent wind. "Are those guys wearing literal space togas?" Taylor had emerged from under her console, recording everything on her personal device. "This is better than that midnight movie marathon we had last week. The aesthetic is very retro future past," Rodriguez added, barely containing his own laughter. "Like someone watched every sci-fi movie from the 1950s and said yes, but more dramatic." The alien transmission resumed, now with a note of confusion in its formerly impressive voice. "Your reaction is unexpected. Cease this display of whatever this is and prepare for processing." "I'm sorry," Jessica managed between fits of giggles, hitting the transmit button. "But did you guys design your entire empire based on old movie props? Because those helmets look exactly like the ones from Space Gladiators Attack Mars. And let me tell you, that movie was not meant to be a style guide." The alien's response was delayed, and when it came, it sounded distinctly flustered. "Your insolence is, this is not. Initiating Standard Intimidation Protocol 7. The holographic display shifted to show scenes of planetary destruction and military might, now accompanied by what sounded like a choir singing dramatic battle music. They added a soundtrack. Taylor was now openly filming everything. "This is going straight to space chat. My followers are going to lose their minds. Did they just?" Rodriguez adjusted his controls. "Did they just try to intimidate us with a power metal opera in space?" The bridge of the Lucky Strike dissolved into helpless laughter as the Empire's most prestigious diplomatic vessel, the Eternal Majesty, experienced what would later be known as the most expensive public relations disaster in galactic history. Somewhere in the ship's vast computer core, an AI dedicated to diplomatic relations attempted to process the human's reaction, encountered a fatal error trying to understand the concept of unintentional camp, and had to be rebooted 17 times. Dr. Michael Anderson had imagined first contact scenarios thousands of times during his career as Earth's leading xenoanthropologist. None of them involved him trying not to laugh while presenting to a room full of aliens wearing what appeared to be disco-inspired battle armor. And as you can see from this historical documentation, he gestured to the holographic display showing scenes from various science fiction movies. Humanity has been imagining spacefaring civilizations for centuries. The remarkable similarity between your empire's aesthetic and our entertainment media has created an unexpected resonance. A particularly stern-looking alien in a cape that sparkled like a disco ball raised a tentacle. Are you suggesting that our glorious empire's 10,000-year-old traditions resemble your species' primitive entertainment? Not all of them, Michael replied diplomatically, advancing to the next slide. Some of your designs appear to draw from our Renaissance period. Those helmets, for instance, he pointed to the Imperial Guard's headgear, are nearly identical to what our species once believed Martians would wear, based on a movie called Space Gladiators Attack Mars. It was, not one of our scientific high points. From the back of the Imperial throne room, Lieutenant Amanda Cooper of the Lucky Strike was barely maintaining her composure while recording everything on her datapad. She'd been invited as a cultural representative, which apparently meant being the person who explained memes to confused aliens. And this is why, she whispered into her recording, you don't design an empire's entire aesthetic without running it past a focus group first. The emperor himself, resplendent in what looked like a combination of a Roman toga and a Lady Gaga concert costume, leaned forward on his floating throne. You dare mock the sacred regalia of the eternal empire. Not mocking, Michael corrected quickly. Think of it more as cultural cross-referencing. Speaking of which, he nodded to Amanda, who activated her own presentation. A holographic display shifted to show a side-by-side comparison of the Imperial throne room and Amanda's now famous sock puppet recreation. She'd used glitter socks for the nobles, a particularly sparkly Christmas stocking for the emperor, and somehow managed to capture the exact way the imperial cape fluttered dramatically in non-existent wind. Several younger nobles broke protocol and snorted with laughter before being silenced by their elders' glares. The emperor's own children, sitting in smaller floating thrones, were visibly struggling to maintain their composure. The video has already received over 10 billion views across human space, Amanda reported professionally. The Sock Empire series is now the most popular entertainment franchise in 3 sectors. We've had to deny rumors that it's actually official Imperial programming. This is outrageous, thundered the Imperial Chancellor, his golden shoulder pads quivering with rage. The sacred traditions of the Empire are not some form of buff content, Amanda suggested helpfully, because there's already a channel dedicated to rating Imperial ships based on their aesthetic drama factor. The Eternal Majesty got 5 out of 5 space cathedrals, by the way. Very gothic chic. Michael quickly stepped in before the Chancellor could explode. What we're trying to explain is that humanity processes new experiences through humor and cultural reference. The fact that your empire's appearance so closely matches our historical entertainment has created a unique situation. The humans find us amusing. The Emperor's chief cultural advisor looked like she was having an existential crisis, but our aesthetic was designed to inspire awe and terror. "Oh, it's definitely awe-inspiring," Amanda assured her, pulling up another hologram. "Have you seen the fan art? Someone reimagined your entire fleet as different Broadway musical numbers. The Eternal Majesty is Phantom of the Opera, obviously." The imperial court erupted into chaos as younger nobles started pulling out their own devices to look up the references. The emperor's youngest daughter was caught trying to order a Space Romans, but make it fashion t-shirt from a human merchant site. Perhaps, Michael suggested to the increasingly distressed imperial leadership, we should take a brief recess before discussing the 10,000 fan fiction stories that were posted in the last hour alone. I should warn you, many of them are romance-focused, and there's one particularly popular one about an imperial guard and a human coffee maker. The emperor's cultural advisor fainted dead away, her ornate headdress clattering across the floor in what Amanda would later describe as perfect slapstick timing. In the back of the room, 3 young nobles were already working on a recreation video, using the Imperial Guard's ceremonial feather dusters as props. Supreme Executor Valthrak had never failed a diplomatic mission in 300 years of service. Their record was perfect, their methods precise, and their intimidation tactics legendary. As they stood on the bridge of their command ship, surrounded by an armada of 10,000 vessels, arranged in the sacred pattern of absolute authority, they felt certain this human situation would soon be resolved. "Begin the synchronous arrival sequence," Valthrak commanded, their voice echoing through the perfect acoustics of the bridge. "Activate the Song of Inevitable Dominion." That's when everything went wrong. Instead of the carefully orchestrated symphony of power that had broken the will of countless civilizations, the entire fleet's communication system began playing something else, something that could only be described as "never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down," blasted through 10,000 ships simultaneously. In his small office aboard the Systems Alliance Defense Station, Navy technician Kevin Martinez leaned back in his chair and took a sip of energy drink. "Operation Rickroll is a success," he reported to his superior officer. "Also, I may have changed their screensavers to dancing hamsters. The old-school ones from Earth's early internet." Admiral Sarah Jackson pinched the bridge of her nose. "Martins, when I said disrupt their communications, this isn't exactly what I had in mind." "You have to admit it's effective, though." Kevin gestured to his monitors, where the Imperial fleet's precise formation was breaking down as confused commanders tried to figure out why their ships were playing 20th century pop music. "Look, that one's doing loops." Back on the Imperial command ship, Valthrak was experiencing something they'd never felt before: embarrassment. "Shut it off," they commanded, their perfect composure cracking. "Shut off all communications." "We can't, Supreme Executor." Their technical officer was frantically working at their console. "The humans have somehow integrated this music into our base operating system. It's even got a dance animation playing on our tactical displays." Valthrak watched in horror as their holographic battle map, usually showing the positions of their fleet in precise military detail, was now displaying what appeared to be small cartoon figures dancing in perfect sync to the music. "The other ships are requesting instructions," another officer reported. "The younger crew members are. They're starting to dance, Supreme Executor." "This is impossible," Valthrak declared. "The Empire's systems are perfect. They cannot be." Their voice cut off as every screen on the bridge suddenly displayed a new message. "Rate your Imperial experience." How intimidating was our arrival on a scale of 1 to 5 space kittens? Back at the defense station, Kevin was now broadcasting live to the entire human network. "Okay, folks, don't forget to like and subscribe to Empire Reviews. Today, we're rating this invasion fleet's entrance. Personally, I'm giving them 3 space kittens out of 5. Points for the fancy formation. But the light show was a bit last season. The Empire's information security chief, Lady Maximilia the Unbreachable, stormed onto her bridge just in time to see her entire staff raiding Imperial ships using cat emojis on something called Ratim Empire. Space. This is a direct violation of Protocol 7249B, she declared. All social media interactions must be approved by the Department of Imperial Glory. But Mom, one of her junior officers replied, not looking up from their screen, this post of the Supreme Executor's ship doing an accidental barrel roll has already gone viral. And someone added something called Shooting Stars music to it. Valthrek, meanwhile, had retreated to their private chambers to find that their personal log now began each entry with Dear Diary, and had somehow added heart emojis to every mention of battle formations. Launch the diplomatic probes, they ordered through gritted teeth. Begin the standard intimidation sequence. The probes launched, their sleek forms designed to strike fear into the hearts of lesser species. Unfortunately, someone, Kevin, had changed their external display messages to read just married and honk if you love Empire. As Valithrak watched their career implode to the sound of never-ending 20th century pop music, they made a mental note. Next time, check Urban Dictionary before using the phrase, "We will dominate you" in official communications. Apparently, it meant something quite different to humans. Former Imperial Intelligence Officer James Wilson stood before a room full of alien resistance leaders, his presentation screen showing a series of what he called classic protest memes. The assembled group, representing 12 different species and 27 resistance movements, watched with a mixture of confusion and growing understanding. The key to peaceful trolling, James explained, adjusting his Imperial intelligence. Task failed successfully t-shirt is to make authority look ridiculous without ever breaking a law. Watch this. He pulled up security footage from that morning's protest on Centauri Prime. As the Imperial peacekeepers marched forward in their standard intimidation formation, the crowd of protesters began dancing. Not just any dancing. They were performing a perfectly choreographed recreation of an ancient human video called Thriller. Notice how the peacekeepers have no protocol for this, James pointed out, freezing the frame on a particularly confused-looking officer. They're trained to handle violence, resistance, even passive sit-ins, but synchronized dancing. Complete system crash. In the back of the room, Rachel Thompson, leader of the Orion Arm Resistance, was already taking notes. But how do you coordinate something like this? She asked, her tentacles twitching with excitement. Social media flash mobs, James grinned. The Empire's surveillance AI is programmed to flag keywords like protest and rebellion. But it completely ignores terms like flash mob or dance practice. We've been organizing resistance meetings as Imperial cosplay conventions. On the main screen, the footage continued. As the peacekeepers attempted to disperse the dancing crowd, the protesters smoothly transitioned into the Macarena. Several younger officers could be seen struggling not to join in. The Empire's biggest weakness, James continued, is that they have no defense against joy. They've spent 50,000 years building systems to control fear, but make people laugh. Their whole power structure falls apart. Rachel raised a tentacle. We've started using something called dad jokes during interrogations. Last week, one of our members was arrested, and when they asked her for information about the resistance, she just kept saying, "Hi, hungry. I'm dad to everything." The interrogator had to take a mental health day. The room erupted in alien versions of laughter. From his corner, a reptilian resistance leader named Kitax shared his own success story. We replaced all the Imperial propaganda posters in our sector with something called motivational cat posters. My favorite is the one of their Supreme Commander with the caption, "Icon has Empire." James nodded approvingly. That's perfect. But watch this next part. This is where it gets really good. The screen showed a new clip. Imperial peacekeepers attempting to break up another protest, only to find the entire crowd wearing masks of their own faces, each one decorated with googly eyes and glitter. They can't arrest people for wearing official Imperial merchandise, James explained, fighting back laughter. Even if it does have googly eyes, we filed the proper merchandising permits and everything. The bureaucracy is so confused, they've been in meetings about it for 3 weeks. Speaking of confusion, Rachel added, pulling up her own footage, has everyone seen what happened when we started the Imperial Officer Walking Contest? Protesters just started following officers around, rating their walk like it's a fashion show. The scores are posted online. The room watched as a clip played of a very confused Imperial commander trying to maintain dignity, while a crowd of aliens held up numbered signs rating his stride. Someone had added a runway music soundtrack. Remember, James said, his expression turning serious for a moment. The goal isn't just to make them look silly. It's to show everyone that fear only works if you let it. Every time we make someone laugh at the Empire, we take away a little bit of their power. Cax raised a scaled hand. I have a question about something called rickrolling. Could we perhaps? James's face lit up with an evil grin. Oh, just wait until you see what we have planned for the Emperor's birthday broadcast. Kevin, you know, the guy who hacked their fleet. He's been working on something special. How do you all feel about something called Nyan Cat? The meeting devolved into chaos as James began teaching alien resistance leaders the choreography to Never Gonna Give You Up. In her corner, Rachel was already planning how to turn the next Imperial parade into what she would later call the galaxy's biggest flash mob. Somewhere in the Imperial Palace, an alert system designed to detect rebellion started smoking as it tried to determine whether dance practice should be classified as a threat to Imperial security. The Imperial Palace's Grand Hall had seen many crises in its 10,000-year history, but none quite like this. The Emperor stood before his advisory council, watching a holographic display of his daughter's latest spaceship post. "Explain to me again," he said, his voice strained, "why my daughter, Princess Victoria Augusta Eternalis, the third heir to the Twilight Throne and future light of the Empire, is wearing our sacred battle armor backwards while dancing to something called Carameldanson. She goes by Ashley now, Your Eternal Majesty," a junior cultural advisor offered helpfully. "And that's not just battle armor. It's what the kids are calling Empire Core. They take traditional Imperial garments and, reinterpret them." On the display, Princess Ashley twirled, her deliberately mismatched ceremonial armor decorated with what appeared to be light-up stickers of Earth cats. The comment section was filled with other noble teenagers posting "Slay Empress" and "Your Empire could never." 30 million views in 1 hour, the Imperial Media Director reported miserably. It's already spawned 17 different remix videos. The one where someone added traditional Imperial battle hymns in a pop style is trending. In her private chambers, Ashley was hosting what she called an Empire Core fashion livestream with her friends. Lieutenant Amanda Cooper from the Lucky Strike had been invited as a special guest judge. Okay, so like traditional Imperial cape. Ashley held up the shimmering garment. Totally basic, but Imperial cape made into a crop top. Revolutionary. Literally. She winked at the camera. "Don't tell my dad I said that last part." Amanda, who had somehow become the galaxy's leading authority on Imperial fashion critique, nodded appreciatively. The deliberate subversion of traditional power symbols really speaks to the current cultural moment. Also, those light-up cat stickers. Chef's kiss. The humans get it. Ashley's best friend, Lady Sophia, call me Sophie, the resplendent added. She was wearing what used to be her father's ceremonial helmet as a handbag. Like the whole point of Empire Core is taking something super serious and making it fun. Watch this. The girls proceeded to demonstrate their latest creation, a choreographed dance routine performed in modified Imperial Guard uniforms, set to a remix of the Empire's most sacred anthem, combined with something called bubble pop. In the Imperial Guard break room, Senior Guard Captain Marcus Thompson, no relation to Rachel, watched the live stream with growing horror. "They're using our sacred battle formations as dance moves," he whispered. "That's the celestial spear maneuver, but they've added jazz hands." "The jazz hands really add something, though," a junior guard commented, then quickly shut up at his captain's glare. Back in the Grand Hall, the Emperor's advisors were showing him the latest trends, rating Imperial outfits based on how extra they are. One read from a popular feed. Day 47. The Supreme Chancellor's shoulder pads now have their own shoulder pads. "We stand a self-aware king." "What does any of that mean?" the Emperor demanded. "We're not entirely sure," admitted the head of Imperial Intelligence. "Our linguistics AI had a breakdown trying to parse teen slang. It's now responding to all queries with no cap, far, and we can't make it stop." The Imperial Fashion Council's attempt to ban the trend only made things worse. Within hours, actually, the Empire is very chuggy, was trending across 17 sectors. Teenage noble houses were hosting Imperial throwback parties where they competed to create the most ridiculous combinations of traditional garments. "My son," the Supreme Chancellor reported miserably, "has started a holotalk channel called Drip or Treason. He rates official Imperial uniforms. Yesterday he gave my ceremonial battle armor a major L and said my crown looked kinda sus." In her livestream, Ashley was now teaching alien teenagers how to turn Imperial banners into aesthetic room decor. The comments section was filled with young nobles sharing tips on how to thrift ancient ceremonial garments. "Remember, guys," she said to her millions of followers, "the key to Empire Core is taking something that's supposed to be scary and making it your own. Like, yeah, this is a 10,000-year-old symbol of Imperial authority, but it also makes a super cute crop top." The Emperor watched as his daughter's latest video ended with what she called a fit check of her latest creation, his own spare crown, modified with cat ears and LED lights, paired with a ceremonial robe that had been turned into what she called a Yeehaw Empire look. "Perhaps," he said weakly, "it's time we considered updating our image for the modern era." "Too late," his cultural advisor replied, showing him the latest trends. #EmperorCore is already the biggest fashion movement in galaxy history. The humans are calling it the first great cultural revolution that started with a TikTok dance. Trade Minister Robert Turner had seen many strange things during his diplomatic career, but nothing prepared him for what happened when he introduced the concept of speaking to a manager to the galaxy's oldest bureaucracy. "You see," he explained to a group of frustrated citizens at the Imperial Processing Center on Nexus Prime, "the key to malicious compliance is following every rule so perfectly that the system collapses under its own weight." A tentacled alien raised an appendage. "But the Empire's rules are absolute. We cannot question them." Robert smiled the special smile that every retail worker throughout human history would recognize. "Oh, we're not questioning them. We're following them. Every single one." The next day, Imperial Compliance Director Karen VX7 arrived at her office to find a line of citizens, each holding a copy of the complete Imperial Regulatory Code, all 47 million pages of it. According to Section 7,294,185, Subsection B, Paragraph 3, the first citizen said cheerfully, "I have the right to request a performance review of any Imperial decision. I'd like to review every decision made since the Empire's founding, please. I've blocked out the next century. Karen VX7's eye stalks twitched. That's not what that regulation. Oh, and according to Section 12,463,001, the citizen continued, I need this review conducted in person, with full documentation. And this is my favorite part. The presence of a senior manager for each department involved. In the back of the line, Robert quietly taught another group the ancient human retail phrase, "This is unacceptable, and I will be leaving a review." Across the galaxy, Imperial processing centers ground to a halt as citizens began requesting to speak to the manager of the Empire. The compliance directors, trained to handle rebellion through fear and intimidation, found themselves helpless against people who just wanted to file a formal complaint about their Empire experience. At the Imperial Customer Service Center, formerly known as the Chamber of Eternal Subjugation, Senior Compliance Director Marcus VX9 was having a breakdown. They keep asking for managers, he whispered, his tentacles shaking. But I am the manager. And when I tell them that, they ask for my manager. It never ends. His assistant nodded sympathetically while updating the new Rate Your Oppression Experience survey that citizens now insisted on filling out after every Imperial interaction. Meanwhile, on the planet Bureaucratia Prime, the Imperial Senate was facing its own crisis. Senator Karen Thompson, still no relation to Rachel, had just pointed out that their traditional ceremonies were, in fact, just space HOA meetings. Think about it, she said to the horrified assembly. We have long meetings about standardized aesthetic requirements. We issue citations for unapproved paint colors on spaceships, and we're obsessed with property values in the Gamma Quadrant. The Senate chambers erupted in chaos as centuries of pompous ceremony were suddenly recontextualized as Galaxy's biggest home owners association. Back at the processing center, Robert was teaching a new group the art of the customer complaint email. Remember, he instructed, always CC everyone in the Imperial hierarchy. And never forget the power of the phrase per my previous communication regarding this matter. The Imperial communication servers crashed 3 times that day under the weight of passive-aggressive emails, all beginning with, to whom it may concern, and ending with, I look forward to your prompt response to this matter. In her office, Karen VX7 stared at her screen in horror as another citizen filed a request for all communications related to Empire policy decisions made between stars years 47,392 and 47,393, using the Freedom of Information Act that someone, Robert, had found buried in subsection 23,847,293B of the Imperial Code. But that would require us to review. She calculated quickly, 17 trillion documents. Yes, the citizen smiled pleasantly. And according to Regulation 8,675,309, you have exactly 3 business days to comply. Oh, and I'll need those in both digital and physical format. I've already submitted the proper forms. In triplicate, the Empire's standardized threat response system, designed to handle everything from armed rebellion to planetary secession, found itself completely unable to process a citizen reply of thank you for your response. I find it unsatisfactory and will be escalating this matter to your supervisor. As Imperial bureaucrats across the galaxy found themselves trapped in endless loops of customer service protocols, Robert sat back in his office, sipping coffee and reading the latest 1-star reviews of the Empire posts. His favorite so far, Eternal Dominion was only somewhat eternal. False advertising. Would not be oppressed again. Navy Commander Elizabeth Parker stood before the Imperial Cultural Advisory Board with what she called her most diplomatic face. the one she usually reserved for explaining to superior officers why their battle plans would work better as interpretive dance routines. A galaxy-wide comedy festival, she repeated, watching the board members' various appendages twitch with anxiety. Think of it as a cultural exchange. Every species shares their own form of humor. It's like the Olympics, but with jokes. And this will help the Empire's image. The head advisor asked cautiously, still traumatized from the latest trend of citizens adding laugh tracks to official Imperial broadcasts. Absolutely. Elizabeth beamed. It shows we're all in on the joke. Instead of fighting it, we embrace it. Plus, she added with a wink, it was either this or let Princess Ashley host her Imperial Fashion Week idea. The board members shuddered collectively, still recovering from Ashley's latest video, turning Dad's war room into a Y2K aesthetic vibe check. And so, Roast the Empire, a galactic festival of comedy, was born. The main stage was set up in the Imperial capital's Grand Plaza, where countless species had once pledged their eternal submission. Now it was decorated with giant inflatable versions of the Emperor's most meme-worthy expressions. Welcome to the first annual Galactic Comedy Festival. The host, a former Imperial Guard turned stand-up comedian named Jack Martins, addressed the largest audience in galaxy history. We've got acts from every corner of the Empire, all here to answer one question. Why so serious? The opening act was a group of Andromedans performing their species' first ever comedy routine, a perfectly synchronized interpretive dance of the Empire's most famous bureaucratic failures, complete with real Imperial forms as props. The Form 27B6 shuffle is my favorite part, Amanda Cooper commented from her judge's seat. The way they capture the silent screaming of someone filling out the same form for the 5th time. Pure art. Next came a troupe of former Imperial Guards with their hit routine. Things that actually happened during bathroom breaks while wearing ceremonial armor. Their demonstration of trying to use a standard Imperial bathroom stall while wearing 3-foot shoulder pads had the audience in tears. Fun fact, one guard revealed, those majestic cape flourishes in official ceremonies. Half the time it's because someone stepped on it in the bathroom, and we're trying to untangle ourselves. The surprise hit of the evening was a group of Imperial AI systems that had developed their own form of humor through exposure to human memes. Their performance consisted of processing Imperial propaganda through every known human meme format simultaneously. What do you call an empire that takes 50,000 years to realize its aesthetic is extra? The lead AI asked. Internet Explorer. Even the Emperor found himself laughing at that one, though he would later deny it in official records, which were promptly leaked with added laugh emojis by Kevin. The festival's highlight came when Princess Ashley and her Empire Core Fashion Collective presented Evolution of Imperial Fashion, from fearsome to fabulous. The show featured historical Imperial outfits reimagined as modern streetwear, including a Supreme Chancellor's robe converted into what she called hypebeast couture. "See, Dad," Ashley called from the stage, modeling a battle armor crop top. "This is how you connect with the youth demographics." The Emperor, watching his daughter turn millennia of Imperial fashion into what she called space Instagram aesthetic, finally did something unprecedented. He laughed. Publicly. On camera. The footage went viral instantly, with captions like Emperor.x has stopped working, and local space dad finally gets the joke. The festival's success was sealed when a former Imperial compliance director brought down the house with their observation about Imperial architectural design. "We built our ships to look like cathedrals in space because someone in engineering was really into Gothic architecture and everyone was too afraid to question it. We've just been rolling with it for 40,000 years." As the festival reached its peak, Elizabeth watched from backstage as species that had once fought wars against each other now bonded over shared jokes about imperial bureaucracy. "You know," she said to Jack, "I think we just invented something better than an empire." "What's that?" "A galaxy-wide comedy club." She grinned, watching as the Emperor himself prepared to take the stage for what would become the most watched comedy routine in history. 50,000 years of dad jokes, an emperor's confession. Kevin, of course, made sure the laugh track was perfect. The signing of the new Galactic Constitution took place in the same chamber where the Empire had once demanded eternal submission from its subjects. But today, the room had been redecorated with what Princess Ashley called democratic chic, which mostly meant adding googly eyes to all the ancient statues of imperial authority. "Welcome to the first assembly of the United Systems of Comedy and Drama." The former emperor, now known simply as Dave, his original name before all the imperial titles, addressed the gathered representatives. "First order of business. Can we all agree these chairs are ridiculously uncomfortable? Seriously, who designed furniture to be intimidating?" The chamber, once a place of terrified silence, erupted in laughter. Kevin had helpfully added a holographic applause sign that also displayed running commentary from the Galactic social media feed. Captain Jessica Hayes of the Lucky Strikes sat in the human delegation section, still nursing her ever-present coffee. "You know," she said to Dr. Michael Anderson, "this all started because our coffee maker broke." Speaking of which, Dave interrupted, having overheard Article 1 of the new Constitution. All governmental meetings must be adequately supplied with coffee. We're not monsters. The Constitutional Convention had been unlike any political meeting in galaxy history. Instead of grim debates about power and authority, the main arguments were about whether to make the official galactic seal more amenable and if they should keep the imperial theme song, but with a sick beat drop. Trade Minister Robert Turner, now head of the Department of Bureaucratic Comedy, a new branch dedicated to making sure government forms included at least one good joke, presented the final draft of the Constitution. Article 2. He read, "Fighting back laughter. All sentient beings have the right to be ridiculous. This includes, but is not limited to, the right to add googly eyes to official portraits." Former Supreme Executor Valthrak, who had found unexpected success as a comedy critic, nodded approvingly. Their latest review column, "Why Every Imperial Threat Speech Sounds Like a Rejected Movie Villain Monologue," had just won a galaxy-wide journalism award. The Constitution's key points were revolutionary in their simplicity. All government buildings must have a meme wall. Mandatory fun days are actually mandatory and actually fun. Official titles must include at least one pun. All criticism of authority must be at least 20% funny. Imperial march music can only be played with kazoos. Princess Ashley, who had successfully petitioned to change her title to Supreme Vibe Checker, had been put in charge of the new Galactic Cultural Exchange Program, her first initiative, trading memes for peace. "It's simple," she explained to the assembly. "Every species has something hilarious about their culture they think other species won't get. Turns out, dad jokes are universal, even among species that don't have dads." Lieutenant Amanda Cooper, now running the Department of Fashion and Unnecessary Drama, had successfully argued for making Cape Thursdays an official galactic holiday. The Empire had all these amazing outfits and kept using them to scare people, she pointed out. Such a waste of good fashion. The biggest change was the transformation of the Imperial Palace into the galaxy's first museum of things that seemed like a good idea at the time. The most popular exhibit, the original Imperial throne, now with a sign reading "Best Selfie Spot in the Galaxy, just don't sit like you own the place." Rachel Thompson's resistance movement had been reformed into the Department of Creative Protest, which organized galaxy-wide flash mobs and helped species develop their own forms of satirical art. Their latest project, teaching a species of sentient crystals how to do stand-up comedy. As the meeting concluded, Dave stood for one final announcement. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. The galaxy's new official motto. The assembled representatives held their breath as the holographic display activated, showing the new galactic seal. A coffee cup with stars swirling in it, surrounded by the words, "Don't panic. We're all making this up as we go along." Also, Dave added with a grin, "Kevin has informed me that he's already made it into a GIF." And so, the galaxy entered a new era, where problems were solved with wit instead of war, where authority was questioned with memes instead of missiles, and where every official document came with its own comedy track. The Lucky Strike's original broken coffee maker was enshrined in the museum as the small appliance that changed the galaxy. Next to it, a simple plaque read, "In the end, the Empire was defeated not by weapons or wars, but by the most powerful force in the universe, the ability to make each other laugh." Kevin made sure to add a laugh track to that too.